Good evening and welcome to Coolnomics Live. Are we streaming? We're just checking that we are streaming. Okay, good evening and welcome. Welcome to Coolnomics Live. We're going to allow 5 minutes for people to join. Drop a comment in the chat and let us know that you're here. Let us know where you're tuning in from this evening. Where in the world you are. And we'll just make sure everything's set up here while we have people join us. Grab a drink, grab some dinner, do your homework in the background. This could be your second screen while you're on TikTok. Whatever your level of stimulation and comfort is, welcome. And thanks for joining us. And thanks for joining us, whoever is here again from last week. This is our second episode of Coolnomics Live. We are streaming from a fishing village in regional New South Wales. And tonight we're going to be talking about how to build things that are culturally relevant for the world, things that are sticky, things that amplify, and things that make money. So we'll just wait for people to join us and drop a comment in the chat. Let us know where you're dialing in while we settle in for the evening.
Be able to use a chat.
Okay, let's make sure we've got the chat happening. All right, I've got the chat screen. What happens when you try to chat? We also got Fiona here, Fiona McDonald, who's one of the managing partners here at Coolnomics as well.
I'm not sitting on the phone. Yeah.
What happens when you...
I've got no, like typing window, but maybe I'll look on my phone. That might be.
I've got a chat window here. All right, I've just popped a test chat in. Let's see. Okay, great. All right, thank you for joining us. If you're just joining us now, it's 7:02. We're going to allow 5 minutes for people to join us tonight. My name's Robyn Wilson. We are here with our second episode, Laura Harries. Wow, Laura and I used to work together many, many years ago in the advertising world. So good to have you join us, Laura. Laura is dialing in from Sydney today. Like I was saying, I'm Robyn Wilson. I'm the founder of Coolnomics, and tonight we're going to talk about how to build things that are culturally relevant, lucrative, and effective in the market. And not even the market. You might be writing a policy for a government agency that engages with humanity and citizens, and you need to make sure that that policy is going to be aligned with what the world needs, the behaviours and desires and values of the constituents that are part of that municipality that you might be writing the policy for, and you want to make sure that that policy resonates and sticks with people and changes their behavior and adopts new behavior. We need to be able to get in under the hood and engage with human beings and align with their needs and desires in ways that are relevant and resonant. Welcome, good evening. If you're joining us, drop a comment in the chat. Let us know where you're dialing in from. I think also it would be interesting to understand the demographics tonight, not actual ages. That's probably a bit too direct, but I've had some really good conversations this week with various people from economics professors who are of the boomer generation right through to ambitious marketers who are Gen Z, all asking questions and engaging in dialogue around Coolnomics principles. And it's always very interesting to hear how people perceive and contribute to this body of work based on where they sit in the cultural landscape and what's relevant to them. Okay, good evening. And chat's going now? Great. Okay. And Fiona McDonald, thank you. All right, good evening. If you're joining us, we'll just wait another minute to get started before we launch the second episode this evening of Coolnomics Live, streaming from Australia. We go live every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Sydney time, and then you can watch these episodes afterwards on YouTube from at any time, anywhere in the world. Eventually, we might add a second time slot for our European and US international viewers so that they can catch it live. But for now, we are working with our friends in Australia, our local community of marketers, business builders, culture and business leaders. Okay, is everyone settled in? How are we looking? Okay, and we've got sound. Our sound's working. Yep. Okay, excellent. Okay, settle in, everyone. We might get started. All right, let's move through our agenda to begin with. Let's get our slides working over here. Okay, let's begin. Like I said, my name is Robyn Wilson. I'm the founder of Coolnomics, an economic theory and business knowledge system. So a way of understanding and being educated in business, building skills and knowledge in an AI world, in an incredibly volatile and complex world in business. And it's all about our discernment, our strategy, and our ability to work across disciplines, technology, product, brand, to build businesses that are relevant to the world. And so this is the time for Coolnomics now. It's a piece that's missing in the business education landscape. Like, where's the business education for the cool people is the question I'm asking. We've got business groups and masterminds for the boss babe girlies over there, and we've got Harvard MBA education for these people over here. How about MBA level education for cool people with a bit of edge and artistry and excellence to it? So I think there's a bit of a gap, and that's where we find ourselves. So our program this evening, we've welcomed people. People are settling in. We're going to begin with a mini lecture. We're going to be unpacking the first principle of Coolnomics tonight, which is cultural relevance. Then we'll move into the Zeitgeist report with 3 examples of Coolnomics active in the world this week in our world. And then we'll move into a Q&A and a live Zeitgeist data capture moment with the audience to capture the zeitgeist of the audience, the mood of the time. Oh, we've got Andrew Park dialing in from Adelaide. Fantastic. Welcome, Andrew. We will, like I said, we'll be capturing the mood of our, I might just close my window here. Sorry, team, bear with me. Okay. Fiona, if you just want to let me know about comments, then I can stick to this. Okay. Yeah, it was really interesting last week to capture data live of how do people feel the mood or the spirit of the time is right now in the world, and how would they like that spirit to feel in the future. Set a bit of a North Star, and we're going to unpack the meaning of what the zeitgeist is this evening, the time spirit. Okay, let's get into it. Let's recap on last week and set our fundamentals. But before we do that, let's acknowledge the country that we're on. So we're dialing in this evening from Little Fishing Village. We're in a cottage in a little fishing village near the Hawkesbury River in New South Wales, Australia. And I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, earth, airways and water, being the Darkinjung people of the local area, as being the traditional custodians, always was, always will be Aboriginal land. We are very lucky to be on this sacred earth here in Australia. Okay, so Coolnomics, the economic theory. Let's recap the fundamentals. So cool is what resonates. Cool is actually a political term. I'm going to be speaking to a guest in a couple of weeks about the origins of the term cool itself on an etymological level. But cool in its most simple form is what resonates, something that resonates between 2 human beings or more. Then we have the nomics, which is the way that value or money moves through a system, which means we arrive at the economics of cool, the absolute flashpoint where the cultural zeitgeist, or cool, sticky, what's interesting and important to society at that point in time, how that shows up in the economy. And if we can understand how those 2 sides of that coin work better, we can do better work that is good for the world, relevant, enriching, as well as being lucrative and economically or commercially successful. I've seen it across my career. We've all seen it out there in the world a million times. And tonight we're going to break down some famous examples of it, as well as some examples that I've actually been working on with some of our Super Aura clients to show you how we've laddered up in real time with a recent brand we've brought to market. So Coolnomics began as an economic theory in late 2023. It was going to be a PhD, but then I felt that it was much better to be a public research project, which here we are today, outside the walls of academia and enriching our peers and colleagues and broader community and some of the ideas that are relevant to all of us. It explores the relationship between culture and economics, and it's designed to create more of what the world wants now and in the future. So the Coolnomics principles, there are 5 of them. We've got the first three principles are the cool, the resonance and the culture side of the picture. Things need to be culturally relevant, emotionally intelligent or emotionally potent, and authentic and credible to the people or person or business or brand that is developing that idea. There needs to be an alignment between the source of the idea and the outcome of the idea, giving it credibility and authenticity to what it represents. And then we've got the nomics side of the picture, which is money and value, the way that those things move through a system. With the fourth principle being commercial viability, which is really could be an MBA in itself, that full vertical. How to maximize profit, how to scale product suites and deliver products to the market in the most commercially capable way. And then finally, if we're here going to be spending so much time unpacking how to build really great things for the world, let's make sure that we're moving in the direction of regenerative and sustainable. If we're going to be relevant to where the world is at now in terms of climate change and geopolitical changes, of course we need to be considering, and I think the zeitgeist wants things to be more regenerative and sustainable. So we're going to be unpacking these 5 principles across these 5 weeks. Tonight we're unpacking cultural relevance. But before I get into cultural relevance, I want to talk to you about a new tool that I'm going to introduce to you tonight. I'm adding little tools into your toolkit each week. We're going to unpack the resonance equation. Okay, the resonance equation is made up of the first 3 principles. Something needs to be relevant. It speaks to the moment and needs of the time. It meets a real need. So it's both has a practical purpose, as well as a spirit or a mood or an emotional alignment with what matters to people. We want to engage emotions. We want to create things that make people feel something, feel like they belong, feel urgency, feel joy, feel relief. Belonging is always a really big one. We want emotional engagement. If we can open up someone's heart, we have the ability to impact them, influence them, get them to change a behavior, adopt a new behavior. Emotions are the gateway. Let's not be afraid of them. Let's build our intelligence in the space of emotions. And finally, credibility. It feels logical and trustworthy that this thing, this idea, this product, this brand, this business is coming from that person or those people. It makes sense. It's logical. It's unquestionable. If we get those 3 things right, we arrive at resonance. Okay, let's look at some examples, some famous examples. Let's apply this equation to 3 famous examples. If we get resonance right, we can deliver social and commercial value, momentum, a really big one that I see in our work as business strategists, and trust. Okay, our first example, Lego, famous, educational toys, large, colorful, primary colors, an incredibly scalable commercial model. But let's talk about the relevance or the resonance side of things first. How is Lego relevant, or what have they built into their model to make them relevant? So it stays relevant. And also something I want to make really want to call out for us. Relevance and resonance needs to be built into the business model itself. It can't be tacked on at the end by the marketing team or the social team. If you want true commercial outcomes, true scaling, if you want to leverage the world around you and the movements of the zeitgeist in the economy, it needs to be built into the actual model of the business. And that's how we're kind of different here at Coolnomics. We're not here just talking about marketing. I've got an MBA and I always operate on the level of the business itself. And then that thinking filters down into what are we doing with the product, the technology, the HR decisions, the operational decisions, and the marketing decisions. So Lego. Relevance is built into the product at the very core. It's teaching people, children right through to adults, how to solve problems, how to learn new things. It's hands-on, it's tactile, it connects generations. It's visually rich and striking and distinct. It's emotional. Again, that color theory element that I just mentioned helps to evoke feelings of pride and joy and engagement, stimulation for the mind. It evokes nostalgia and imagination. It's tangible and rewarding, cathartic. They are powerful, potent emotions. If we can make someone feel cathartic through the product that we deliver to them, how stunning. How stunning to give them a human experience that delivers catharsis or reward or satisfaction, and that we then have a relationship with those people because we've created a through line that created a memory and was emotive, memorable. And then finally, credibility. Lego is trustworthy, consistent, high quality, and credible. and which is pretty impressive when you've got such a global brand to be so consistent in its delivery. I mean, also consistent in terms of stepping on a Lego and hurting your foot. I think any dad in the room and mum could relate to that consistent and credible, even in that way. So I think this is a really nice way of considering how is Lego resonant and why is Lego resonant. Okay, next example. Let's have a look at Netflix. So I did mention this last week. Let's unpack it further. What makes Netflix resonant? So again, on the actual model level, Netflix has been built as a content engine. It can producing their own content as well as using algorithms to deliver content, recommended content to people as they're flicking through. They can update the content on the platform in line with the zeitgeist, in line with the needs, in line with the desires and the interests and the mood of the time in the world. And it's a beautiful example of technology being used to deliver relevance in a split second. And yes, of course, there would be critique in this room this evening in terms of, well, I'm always on Netflix and I can't find anything to watch. Yeah, I know. I find the same thing. We're not saying that these businesses or brands are perfect. We could easily apply a critical lens as well, but we are applying a Coolnomics lens to talk about what they do well this evening. We tend to work more with looking at what's working well with a business rather than amplifying through outrage what we think is wrong with them. I think there's plenty of critique going out there in the space. We're interested in building ideas that are productive and using critical thought in an appropriate way. Okay, Netflix, of course, it's content, it's storytelling, it's film and cinema evoking emotions, memories, and connection to other cultural territories, documentaries, comedies, dramas, political movies. You've got so much emotion. Netflix is an entire ecosystem of emotion waiting to be evoked by the user. And the credibility. Netflix is quite a beautiful business in terms of its aesthetics and its consistent delivery. I mean, the old creative director from Netflix went on to build the brand Liquid Death that I spoke about last week, which again has very high grade aesthetics, very cinematic outputs in terms of their marketing and visual delivery to market. And also by creating their own content from scratch, Netflix Originals deepens their credibility as well, actually enables them to make a mark on the ground in terms of what they stand for, what stories they want to amplify in the world. So credibility is about depth and dimension and making a mark and holding steady, holding firm on that position and taking it all the way to deliver trust and respect in the market. Okay, finally, let's look at Apple. So we've gone really global with these ideas. We've got some smaller business ones that we'll unpack in a moment. So what makes Apple resonate? So Apple is relevant to the market, a little bit similar to a Lego in that Apple delivers products that you can create things with. You can create a conversation, you can create an Adobe Photoshop file, you can create a Premiere Pro file, you can create a Canva document in your browser. The whole positioning of Apple is to think different, to do things differently, to create things that haven't existed before. Originality, to be pioneering is part of the relevant cultural territories that connect people to Apple. Of course, in this space, we have a lot of emotions, again, at our fingertips. Do you see how the equation, when we apply it to these three examples, you're starting to see some universal values or rules or plays, we might call it in business. Like, okay, how can I make this more emotionally potent would be a brush that I would apply to any business that I'm working on. It might be something you might want to consider. How do I make something richer, deeper, more relevant? And so Apple, again, if we're engaging with people's creativity, we're going to be evoking emotions that are rich, aspirational, delightful, and then even intuitive. Using a computer and the computer feels like it gets you, knows you, likes you, wants you to use it. That is emotional. That is great UX. That is great intuitive design. It doesn't happen by accident. It happens by crossing over into that human frontier and really unpacking, how do I make something feel wonderful for the user? That can be the objective. And then finally, of course, the credibility of Apple. It's a hugely global scale conglomerate business that is, privacy and security are really paramount. Again, the actual originality and the design and the hardware and the software is credible to the vision of Steve Jobs. And then even the story of Steve Jobs, the founder story, being so famous and so distinct and uncompromising, still feeds into the feeling of that brand today. And then even the complexity of Steve Jobs's reputation and some of the not so pretty parts of his personality. You've got to balance and navigate when you've got a founder story, what's going to happen if that founder isn't perfect. Yeah, that's part of running a modern business and be able to maintain credibility while holding space around the undulations of what a human can be. Okay, 3 examples for our resonance equation. How's everyone feeling? How's it going? How are things looking? I won't actually open up my chat. That would, okay, all good. All right. And our time, 7:20 on the dot. I think I was supposed to start at 7:20. That's good. Okay. All right, let's get into the lecture for this evening. So, principle 1, we've now spoken about the overarching idea of the resonance equation for the first 3 principles: relevance, emotions, credibility. Let's drill down into number 1 in more depth: cultural relevance. So, what is culture? Let's take a step back. Everybody, take a step back. I think we get lost on what culture is. I was working on a brand a couple of years ago that was very much a cultural brand. I'd been brought in as their head of marketing to develop that brand from scratch as a culture brand. And when I presented some of the thinking around that brand strategy initially, there were questions around, do we want to be a cultural brand? What does it even mean? And I really had to do some work in terms of understanding and taking our team on the journey of what is culture. Culture is not necessarily arts. Culture is not necessarily TV. They are expressions of culture. What culture is on the most fundamental level is 3 things, is how you can remember it. Culture is the fabric of society, what we do with our time, what we choose to buy, what values we align with, I mean, think back to cave drawings, to the most ancient form of culture is what we do. How do we express what matters to us? And then how does that make us who we are? So identity. Culture is what we do that makes us who we are. And that's going to create cultivation. So the etymology of the word culture is to cultivate things, to nurture things, to make things become real from the inner of the human to the external of the community. And then finally, what we do that makes us who we are, that connects us with other people, is what culture fully is. So that is the connection point. That's when it becomes a fabric, a web that holds all of us together. We have a global culture, then we have national cultures, then we have local cultures, then we have cultures within our niches and sub-niches and subcultures. We have a culture within our friendship group. We have a culture within our family. What do we continue to do? What do we continue to do that makes us who we are? And how does it connect us to each other? And what parts of that are good and what parts of that could be better? What language do we use? What decisions do we make? What do we do that makes us who we are, that connects us to other people? Let's really get clear on that. So therefore, the question becomes, how do we do things that are culturally relevant? Relevance being relational. This thing makes me feel like me now, is the ultimate outcome. So I've set up a formula for you that's in 4 parts. I'm going to give you a quick formula this evening for you to move in the direction of building things that are more culturally relevant. Step 1, we're going to map the cultural territories, and I'm going to give you examples of how to do this. Step 2, we're going to get a feel for the zeitgeist. We're going to use a tool called the Zeitgeist Radar, and we're going to get a feel for the spirit of the time, what's interesting to those people within those cultural territories, what are they thinking, feeling, doing, and being. Then we'd start to develop up ideas. By doing steps 1 and 2, we get a good feel for the human beings that we're trying to connect our product or idea with. Once we've got a good feel for that, we'll start to naturally see ideas emerging and strategic options. And then we're going to take those ideas and we're going to test them in the market. We're going to test them with our peers. We're going to test them with our board. We're going to test them with focus groups. We're going to, often the best way is to test it with the market and see what sticks, see what people say. That can often be the fastest way to getting to exactly the right thing that will hit. And you iterate. You take one version out and then you iterate it. You know, Seth Godin, a famous marketing author, always talks about just ship it, right? So that's That's part of his ideology or fundamental of just ship it, get it out there, and the market will tell you very quickly what it likes and what it doesn't like. Okay, let's start to break it down into an actionable form. And I'm going to use an example this evening of a brand that we're literally launching in market right now. It's called Nalu. It's a really beautiful Gumbangi and Bunjalung design house located in northern New South Wales, and it's founded by an incredible and well-known Indigenous artist and surfer called Otis Hope Carey, and his partner Sophie Willing, who was a model, is also a business leader, a real it girl of the early 2000s. This couple are so talented, so committed, beautiful artistry, so much depth, so much credibility. It's been a real joy to work with them. So they brought us in to do their business strategy, a 5-year business strategy for this brand, for this design house. And now we're working with them on the actual brand direction, the creative direction of the look and feel and words that we're using to take to market. And we're getting incredible traction in terms of our social media already. We haven't even launched the actual product, and incredible traction in terms of media coverage in the kinds of mastheads that we wrote in the strategy where our objectives to hit. So let's talk about how did we start from scratch. Earlier this year when we first started to work with Nalu, and by the way, their first collection are these beautiful soft tapestries, these huge oversized soft tapestries that feature Otis's artworks on them, aligned with a poem, and they represent Otis's childhood memories of Nalu, Nalu being Gumbangi for water, and his memories around water and his stories as a surfer, all coming together into a high aesthetic landscape. So here's the exercise that I undertook with this brand before we got to where we are now, where it's tangible and real and about to make money in market. Here's how we started. I went, okay, we've got a product. We've got these blankets, we've got furniture, we've got homewares, we've got objects, lighting, all the beautiful things that they plan to produce and deliver to market in the next 5 years. Okay, products of that nature. All right, then we've got these people over here, which is the market. And also you can apply this. It might not be a product, it might be a policy that you're writing, and you've got a bunch of citizens over here that you need to get to change their behaviors or adopt this new policy. So you can actually apply this whether there's money involved or not. This is all about relevance in whatever the setting that might be. So you've got a product over here and you've got people over here. How are we going to join those two together? We're going to start mapping it. So let's start mapping some cultural territories. So these words inside the circles are cultural territories. Okay, well, I know that I've got surfing and countercultures to work with. Surfers often have tattoos, surfers and skateboarders, any sort of culture movement in society that is countering to the culture. It's got rebellion and punk with it. Okay, that's a little marker to know about there and what would be relevant there. It's a family-owned business. We've got the mum and dad and their 2 kids. It's part of their lineage and giving back to community. Okay, people who are interested in families and family values will be relevant here. People who are either First Nations, have an appreciation for First Nations art and culture. Okay, that would be relevant in terms of territories and things that would connect the people who are into this product. These are things they might also be into. Okay, they would probably be into nature. Also, Otis has done quite a lot of collaborations with brands like Louis Vuitton and Christian Louboutin, Longines, etc. So there is a whole luxury element, people who appreciate high aesthetic, high quality, premium products. Okay, and then a couple more territories might be people who are interested in contemporary art and appreciate and understand it's part of their culture. Contemporary art is something that they do. And then also architecture and interiors. These are beautiful, large artworks, blankets or tapestries that can be hung as artworks that would look beautiful in beautiful homes in Byron Bay. Okay, these are sort of territories that I would need to be considering when we write that business strategy to make sure that we are hitting at a median point that would make sense to people who are in those spaces. It's got to be high quality. It's got to be a little bit edgy. It's got to be really deep and sacred. It needs to have some wholesomeness and warmth of the family element and the epicness and the beauty of nature. Okay. What next? Oh, sorry, excuse me. There were 2 more final territories. Of course, the fashion angle with Sophie's background, also Otis's recent collaborations. And also I reckon there's a little bit of an angle of feminism as well. And that's part of getting to know the founders of a business and knowing their story. And Sophie is a really powerful woman. And I really think that there's an element of equality and justice and empowerment in this story as well to ensure we capture in the narrative and the brand building. Okay, so that was the first mapping of the territories. Step 2. Zeitgeist radar. So now we need to get a feel for the spirit of the time for the people who are operating within those territories. So let's remind ourselves of the meaning of the word zeitgeist. Zeit, it's a German word, Zeit meaning time, Geist meaning spirit. It's the time spirit. It's the spirit of the time. And now we can see the spirit of the time in the data in terms of what people are spending money on. We can see it in the economy. We can see it in social media comments. And you're also going to learn more and more across your career how to get a gut feel for the spirit of the time. That's when true originality starts to come through of like, oh, I'm seeing a little signal there. I'm seeing something interesting that could be relevant to what we want to bring into the world, that we could leverage and relate to, that relate to other people, that create stickiness and magnetism around the new thing that we're bringing into it. Okay, so the Zeitgeist radar as a tool. Let's look at it in terms of Nalu again. So we're going to take each of the territories and let's choose surfing, for example. And we're going to apply our pulse finding and our signal tracking structure, which is the people within the surfing territory. What are they thinking? And it's what are they thinking now in this spirit of the time? People who are surfing, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they doing? Actively, practically, where are they surfing? What kind of surfboards are they buying? What's going on with the swell? What's going on with surf culture? And then how are they being? What is the feeling in their spirit? What matters to them? If you do a breakdown like that, get into the minds and hearts using empathy as a tool to understand the spirit of the time for the people within the surfing territory. And then you also do it for people in the luxury territory. If you go back to that territory mapping that we did, the luxury territory, people who are in the First Nations community, people who are in the architecture and interiors territory, people who are interested in nature. What are all of those people thinking, feeling, doing, and being? This might sound like a big exercise, but it's only like a couple of hours an exercise to do that maps an entire landscape of potential for you to relate your product to start to see magical sticky points show up when you bring the two together. So now let's consider this like it's two layers. You've got your territories mapped, and then you're applying the fabric of the zeitgeist. What are all these people thinking, feeling, doing, and being? And very naturally, you'll start to see some universal sticky points or resonance pulses show up across that landscape. Oh, people with families are also relating to this particular thing that people in nature are into. Oh, also surfers are interested in this particular thing that's relevant to the contemporary art world or the feminism world. And you'll start to see there's a magic bit here. You'll start to see some original ideas that start to come through, and that's when you'll start to develop strategies and ideas that are relevant to the world, that are resonant and sticky and undeniable. Which brings us to, actually, it brings us to creating a cultural hit that I'm going to talk to in a moment. But I want to give you another example, right? Now, this is whiplash a little bit, so just let's go slow. We're going to talk about a major electrical brand. Do you know if we've got Charisse on the chat this evening? If we do, Charisse, drop a comment in the chat because I've developed this just for you. This is a Gen Z marketer, a friend of mine, who was asking me, who watched last week's episode and was asking, yeah, I was thinking about how I could bring your ideas of Coolnomics into what I'm doing at Schneider Electrical. Schneider Electrical are global, multinational, selling electrical engineering parts, switches and codes and circuitry and wiring, and wholesale, B2B. Charisse is there. Okay, amazing. Hi, Charisse. Welcome. So maybe not traditionally cool, but this is what we're part of the beauty of Coolnomics is breaking down the fact that the old idea of cool was quite flimsy, right? Cool was skateboarders, Vice magazine, Rick Owens, a very particular view of what cool is. And my proposition to you is that cool is relative to the context. So for example, people who are into Warhammer, I don't know if you know it, but it's little figurines, playing games and war. It's an incredible business model. It's books, it's video games, it's figurines, it's all the parts of the figurines. It's an incredible commercial model. Warhammer is cool to those people. People who are into Star Wars, people who are into Star Trek. That is cool to those people. It resonates with them. It is relevant. So cool is relative to the people that we're speaking to. So I just did a very quick skim here. And Charisse, let's see if we can do this live a little bit together, see if the delay doesn't get in the way with our chat. I put together a couple of territories. I'm not even going more deeply into this product vertical. This is for Charisse, can pick this up and run with it. But the idea was, how can we build a marketing program for her work at Schneider to engage the wholesalers that she is selling parts to, that will engage them and teach them about the products, so then they're more likely to, and they are enabled to sell those products to their end consumer. I thought, okay, what's relevant to these people? And don't mind me, I'm not meaning to be stereotypical of if they work in this particular area, they're interested in these things. That's why I've got a few question marks, because I don't want to be stereotyping. But this is how you create demographics. I was like, okay, well, if they work for an electrical engineering company, they're probably into electronics. They're probably into pop culture. You could probably say that with most groups. Are they into gaming? Perhaps. I believe also the demographic skew is more male. So I'm sort of making some assumptions here. Let's see what else we've done. I thought, okay, if they're into electronics, they're probably into engineering, which maybe they're into aviation, maybe they're into space, maybe they're into science fiction. I don't know. Charisse would be able to answer this for me. And then even, again, as a marketer, you start to build these fundamentals of like, okay, well, what kinds of foods, do we have any food correlation? What foods are these sorts of people eating? Is it relevant or not? It might not be. You might do a mapping on foods and find that no, that's too varied in this group. There's nothing sticky or sort of consistent there to work with. But then I was like, okay, if it's a strong male skew, is this demographic into cars? Yes, no. If they're into cars, what kinds of cars? Okay, cool. And then also sports. Are these people into sports? What kinds of sports? When, how, what? This is very quick without me even knowing this product well. These would be some of the standard questions I would be asking, and then you go deeper and deeper into it. So into our chat, sorry, team, I've taken the chat off mine so I don't get distracted by it. But Fee, what is Charisse saying? Sorry.
General home repairs, like fix it kind of guys.
Oh yeah, fix it kind of guys, home improvements. Okay, amazing. All right, Charisse, that is a first slice through, right? Just a few territories. And then we would do, what's my next slide here? Okay, so that's that on that exercise. Charisse, your next step would be to literally go through each of these territories and think about the people in the territories of electronics, gaming, etc. What are they thinking, feeling, doing, and being? And you're just mapping, you're just openly thinking, blue sky thinking, getting a feel for your customer, getting a feel, using empathy to get into their hearts and minds and start thinking and feeling like them. That's great marketing, right? This is a way of doing that through the Coolnomics lens specifically. And once you've done that, you're going to put together some ideas, and you're going to test out some of those ideas, and you're going to iterate those ideas until it hits. Charisse was telling me that she did a little experiment this week with a Taylor Swift. That's why I put in pop culture, a Taylor Swift reference in a meme that she put together for her customer group. And there were some Swifties in the chat. So that was a nice little test of like, okay, that was something. And see how that disrupted the space. Like, oh, this is a promotion about a Switch. Yet we're now talking about Taylor Swift. I'm accidentally finding switches interesting. That's a Trojan horse. We can make anything interesting, exciting by building something that relates to that person around it. All right, if we get this right, the outcome is a cultural hit. So the way that we understand this is we've got the cultural zeitgeist moving along. Let's say it's on the horizontal. Culture is flowing. The zeitgeist is moving forward. This is literally time moving forward. Culture, movies, businesses, things that are created and happening in the world. The culture is flowing. And the Coolnomics moment hits when we have the money moving at the perpendicular point in this metaphorical sense. When they hit together, think of any great movie, think of any great product that was a phenomena, Lego, Apple, Netflix, Liquid Death. We arrive at a hit. That's the resonance point. We see it all the time. We're just explaining it in this particular way through Coolnomics in a fun, educational, active way, hopefully even like a Trojan horse. So we don't even realize that we're learning things here with high aesthetic graphics, etc. is the intention, but that is the Coolnomics hit. That's what we're all working towards now. Sure, that could be just doing it once. We don't want to do these things once we have a hit and then the business falls over or we become irrelevant as a business. No, you need to build it into the strategy, ways of continuing to remain relevant. Now, I want to give you a couple of examples by talking about another concept called the cultural flywheel. That isn't my concept, that exists in the world, just like the zeitgeist. I'm just explaining it through the Coolnomics lens. And I want to talk to you about how you build momentum and get things to last. And our first example is a very famous, very recent example, which is Charli XCX Brat. That Brat season went, the duration, I think she got 24 months out of that. I think. and with different crescendo points, right? The actual album release. There was the Times Square moment. There was the Coachella show. There was the world tour. There was Addison Rae. There was Brat getting married recently. It was incredibly well done in terms of continuing to roll out the next layer of Brat to keep it relevant. So let's visualize that. So let's consider the Brat album as an asset, a cultural asset, a thing that she's created. It's got a story, it's got an aesthetic, it's got a history, and it's got Charli XCX to bring it to life with sound that is relevant and striking for the moment. But why? Why did it continue on? Well, let's try to explain a little bit here. Here are some of the reasons that I think it worked. She really represents the neo artist, the new artist, visceral, intense, uncompromising, a woman, a powerful woman, a woman who isn't just Anglo-Saxon as her background, which has been dominant in the zeitgeist. Charli XCX really represents the neo artist. She also hooked into rave culture. Rave culture is really big in the zeitgeist. It's, you know, rebellion, freedom, mind-altering, new ways of partying, also nostalgia, rave culture. I've talked about this last week. I used to design parties for Ministry of Sound back in like 2004, I think it was, and I was a raver. So the feeling of that time to represent that and to connect into the nostalgia of rave culture is powerful and undeniably cool. It's cool because it's striking and there's a price to entry. You don't just rave. That's a whole culture and dedication you need to be a part of. So if you understand rave culture and you like Charli XCX, the potency, the credibility, and the emotion of that is profound. Which also links us into hedonism. Life is not all pretty and nice. Life is not all vanilla. Charli XCX performing on stage to the point of even vomiting, like that is the level of visceral that can be seen in a true artist. We can't say what the expression needs to be, but we want the expression of the artist to be true and rich and undeniable. And connecting to hedonism is, you know, I think that also spoke to the zeitgeist in terms of the world being very tight and intense, cost of living, the economy. Charli XCX and Brat represented rebellion and disruption from the oppressive nature of the modern world. And it was a big, you know, middle finger to things being neat and also being a good girl, which we'll speak about feminism as well. Also hyper aesthetics, right? That particular green, that particular lowercase typeface, but then the production of the shows was so slick and so high quality. It had to be if you wanted to land this thing. So hyper aesthetics, not just good looking things, the best looking things, large scale, slick, monochromatic, incredible design fundamentals, and feminism, the modern woman. She is ballsy. She is not pretending. Also, she's on her own. Charli XCX held that stage on her own, not a band, not a DJ, no one else except for special guests like Addison Rae. The woman alone on that stage, commanding with huge typography on the screen behind her, the ultimate archetype of the modern woman. And feminism being the idea that we all have an equal place to belong in the world. Charli XCX took up her spot. Now, let's talk about a slightly more classical example, an example of when things do hit and don't always hit. Let's talk about Disney. So Disney, they're throwing their IP. Did I explain that well enough in terms of why Charli XCX kept remaining relevant? I think so. All of those different reasons were different paints from the palette to bring out each month of rolling out that campaign for Brat that meant it remained in the zeitgeist and relevant to the world. Okay, now Disney, where like Charli XCX's album might hit in a very different way. Let's consider Disney that is outputting, let's say movies, right? Outputting these pieces of IP, movies, franchises sometimes, into the zeitgeist. Sometimes they hit and sometimes they don't. A movie might hit the cultural flywheel and continue on and continue to build and compound. Another one might hit Cinderella, Snow White, Little Mermaid. Sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't. Because also this is the risk of business and the testing and iterating. And if you don't have the right people in your boardroom who understand about how to do things that are relevant and part of the zeitgeist, you might send something to market that is off-geist, irrelevant and it won't work. No one will buy it. No one will show up to it. No one will promote it. No one wants to be associated with it. It has to be something that resonates with people. And so sometimes you're going to have failed and sometimes you're going to have hit projects, which we see with Disney, which is to be expected. You're not going to get it right all the time, by the way. I'm not being puritanical in terms of none of it can be a fail. You're going to fail sometimes in business, in market. The zeitgeist moves, the economy changes, consumers change. There could be something about the product in terms of the actual user experience that isn't quite right. And that's why the Coolnomics principles, there's 5 of them to consider all parts of it. But tonight we're just talking about cultural relevance. Okay, so that was the lecture for this evening. You've got 4 steps that you can move through. I want you to try this out this week, okay? I want you to take the product that you're working with, or the idea, or the business, or the project, and I want you to consider the people that you want to have engaged with that thing. You want those people to listen to that thing, buy that thing, talk about that thing, be proud to be associated with it. Think of all the territories that are relevant to those people in their lives that connected to the product that you're looking at. I want you to consider the zeitgeist, the spirit of the time, the mood, what's moving people, what feels like now. And you'll start to see, I'm telling you, you'll come up with 10 ideas in that exercise for what would be a great thing to do now with this thing, with these people in this way that would hit. Okay. Now, how are we all going? All moving okay? All right, let's move into the Zeitgeist report. I know this is a lot of information. We're going well on our time. I think 7:45 looks pretty good to me. The Zeitgeist report is real live examples in this week, in the past week. So the first one, and these are pulse points. These are examples of businesses or things that are happening in culture. The Louvre was burgled. Hey? What was interesting was as we all know, there was a burglary at the Louvre in Paris, and valuable jewels were stolen by 4 burglars, and this very brazen plot that was deployed with a ladder and what were they? Scooters that they got away. They got away with it. What I'm interested in is the way the world responded to it. The way the world responded was cynical. It wasn't, oh no, those poor jewels. No, it was silly TikToks. It was memes. It was people making fun of it. It was New York Times talking about the actual sartorial or fashion presentation of one of the detectives on the case. It wasn't about the jewels. No one really seemed to care about the jewels. What people seemed to care about was, or what they focused on was this kind of cynical take, because it raised political and social questions around the position of a museum in a modern world, questions around colonization and repatriation of artifacts and items that were taken from a certain society and being held in museums. So because of the cultural positioning and what museums represent to the cultural zeitgeist at this point in history, the world responded accordingly. And then we even had the company who owned the lift that was used in this particular heist created an ad like days after the heist saying, if you're in a hurry, showing the actual lift outside a building, referencing the Louvre. That is so cynical. There was no real, I mean, if people were hurt, then probably that wouldn't have, people might have responded differently, but it seemed like there was sort of no harm done besides jewels being stolen from a museum, that a lift company even felt it was appropriate to make a really of the moment advertisement that related to the joke. So yeah, what the heist? The world is quite cynical these days. We're looking for humor in any way that we can, and so this sort of talks about what's culturally relevant. Where is the zeitgeist at? What is the authenticity and credibility of a museum these days? And how do the commercials show up in relation to these things? Okay, second example, leaders with range. Now, my first example is Ms. Rachel, who is a famous kids presenter, has a big show on YouTube and is a huge social media star. Miss Rachel, teaching kids. She does collaborations with Sesame Street, encouraging kids to brushy their teeth with cute little language like that, right? That's one part of her range. Very wholesome, very safe, very credible, very trustworthy, very comforting. Miss Rachel. But then the range, Miss Rachel is an outspoken, consistent, incredible activist working to protect and fight for the children of Gaza. And she does not pull any punches. She talks about it regularly. She calls out leaders. She talks about children needing to eat, and the issues of famine. That is the range of a modern leader. And she's being, part of this representing the zeitgeist is magazines like Glamour are including Miss Rachel in their Women of the Year awards, because we need people that stand up for things and are wholesome. It's range. I want to encourage more range in our products, in our leadership, that we can be both. We are both. Tonight, I'm wearing my skater top with Girl Boss Gatekeep, this satirical skater top. I'm not wearing the business shirt this week because this is my other side. I'm an experimental artist from back in the day who's now got an MBA written in economic theory. Both, babe. What is your both, or often 5 things all at once? But I want to encourage us and normalize the range that we can be multiple things all at once. Another example, Alex Greenwich, a politician from New South Wales, Australia. He's he's a councillor for the city of Sydney. Right-hand person to the Mayor, Clover Moore. Alex has just come out recently. Alex has fought for incredible, he's an activist and fights for really important human rights and LGBTIQA issues that are important. And this week he's come out with a really important story about his work, but his physicality is a huge part of that story. He's topless, shirtless. He's across multiple publications all at once right now with this breaking story that is in the media. And his visual presence is a part of that. It's not separate to it. I am a good-looking man who also stands for things that matter and fights for his constituents. And I'm gay. Yes, all part of it. Multiple things all at once. It's kind of wild that we haven't had space for people to be multiple things all at once up until now. But now in a complex world where we can hold duality, we need range. And then finally, Abby Chatfield. That striking, outspoken, incredible Abby Chatfield, ruffles feathers, disrupts, uncompromising, fighting the patriarchy on one hand, and her podcast engaging with maths and social commentary, kind of silly stuff, and then right through to her soft, loving, dedicated relationship with Adam Hyde, Kelly Holiday from Peking Duck. Online, we're all watching this love story unfold. So again, range and her physicality. Yeah, Abby Chatfield wears little short shorts and posts thirst traps and dances online looking really hot. And in the same breath is talking about politics, the environment, feminism, and the patriarchy. Both, babe. Both. Leaders with range. Okay, finally, and this is kind of related, but let's talk about kind of maybe men more specifically. Now, it's this idea, we've got a few examples here, right? We've got Jack Steele, who's just done a collaboration with Boof Hair. Boof, it's a hair growth serum, right? And their main ambassador is Indy Clinton, who's in that first clip on the left-hand side. And they've now added Jack Steele from the Inspired Unemployed. We did a collab with them at the QBB years ago. Jack Steele dressed up in a wig, promoting this hair serum for men as well. I mean, well done to Rachel Wild, the founder of Boof Hair, recognizing that there's a whole male market for this same product that we thought was just for a female demographic. We've got, I'm just going to play those TikToks again. We've got Jack Steele dressing up in a wig, being campy, right? Then we've got Jake Paul with his those AI characters that he was playing over the last few weeks, putting on makeup and being really campy and effeminate. And then finally, I'll round this together. Finally, that last TikTok, this group of boys, actually it's the other uninspired, unemployed Matt Falcon, took a trip down to Bondi to Motoric, right? This fashion store in Bondi Beach. And this clip is of these boys spending time together, choosing their fashion, choosing their glasses, choosing their top. They're actually, in the actual commentary in the clip, they're all talking to each other about what they're wearing and the colors and the patterns. Now, I believe we've moved from an age of gay, campy people, straight, uptight, non-dimensional people. Let's just say it in that, we're talking very frankly in a really basic kind of way here. And then also consider AI. AI showed Jake Paul in scenarios that you would never have seen him in before. Jake Paul doing a makeup tutorial? That's not a thing. Well, with AI, a simulation can occur where a man can suddenly do things, play with his femininity, play with his identity, play with his expression, and break the taboo, and feel free. And the way I want to say this is a very hot topic. I used to work with Mardi Gras and we used to talk about, who is Mardi Gras for? Is it for only queer people or LGBTIQA people? And is it also for straight people as allies? Where is the line drawn? When you narrow down on the spectrum of sexuality, the veil becomes very thin of who is allowed to be this and who is allowed to do that. And I believe we're moving into a future. I think the veil is very thin for straight men. I don't really like using terms that are so sort of binary, but men that identify as straight. In gay culture, it's more normalized to behave in campy, effeminate, colorful, expressive ways. But in straight culture, we have so little parameter for that. But I believe those parameters are widening because, men are human beings with expression, desire, feminine and masculine traits. Why wouldn't they want to explore and finally let go of the rigidity and the restrictions of what they're allowed to be and not be? Men and women, because we could also say this, we could also break this down for women, playing with masculinity as an expression point and structure and leadership. I mean, I'm a woman in an economic theory space. That's a very masculine patriarchal setting and it's very uncomfortable, but I know that it's the right place for me to be. I want us to hold space for us to break free of the limitations of what we think we're allowed to be and be full human beings that can hang out with their mates and choose some fashion on the weekend and then go and rope a bull or pick up a bale of hay or drive a truck, whatever, stereotypes. I'm kind of kidding, like whatever masculine stereotypes. I just think when we drill down to these things, the veil becomes very thin between what is masculine, what is feminine, what is straight, what is gay. And I believe we're moving into a future, and with AI, I think it will help to create more simulation where people can become what they couldn't be before, and that will create a normalization of in reality where things start to merge together and we become much more multidimensional beings. Okay, I've gone a little bit over time tonight. We've only got 4 minutes left, but we are done with our Zeitgeist report. Now, do we have any questions that we need to attend to? I'm sorry, team, if I haven't looked at the questions enough.
For me, I asked one.
Okay, but let's do our Zeitgeist report. Let's do our live Zeitgeist. Yeah, if there's no questions that I absolutely have to answer. All right, we've got 2 questions for you this evening before we wrap up. Take a moment to settle in. I want you to feel into the spirit of the time. What is one word you would use to describe the spirit of the time right now in the world? The spirit of the time. What is the mood? Through your point of view. There's no wrong answer. Any word you use would be right for you. It's your perspective on the spirit of the time. I might pull up my chat now so I can see it. All right, the spirit of the time. And also, I know these like sort of big concepts that I'm presenting this evening. So it's okay if you don't have an answer right now as well. I'm just planting the seed for you to go away and think about the spirit of the time through your point of view. Okay, amazing, Andrew. Hopeful. Okay, Charisse, demanding. Yes. See, the spirit of the time is going to be an amalgamation of multiple things, and it's the median that becomes the zeitgeist. So they're 2 really beautiful answers that are part of a range, right? From hopeful through to demanding. Okay, we might move to the next question. How would you like the spirit of the time to feel? If we were to set a North Star for the kind of world we want to live in, the kind of zeitgeist we want to be a part of and contributing to, the kind of zeitgeist we want to cultivate, what is a word you would use for the spirit of the time you would like to be moving towards? Because we can't create the future unless we are intentional about the future we want to be a part of ourselves. How would I like it to feel? Okay, Charisse, collaborative and fun. Fiona, calm. And Andrew's inspiring. They're great things. I would love for the zeitgeist to feel like that too. How would I like it to feel? I would like it to feel alive. I would probably add the word alive there, in the sense that I don't want us to lose the richness in our society, the immediacy, the connection, the reality. We need to be making sure we're spending time together in person. We're doing tangible things. Our social media is considered and enriching, and we have good policies and governments and economies that support us to be flourishing human beings that live good lives that feel collaborative, fun, calm, and inspiring. Okay, we've just got a couple more and then we're done this evening. So tune in next week for the next principle, which will be emotional potency or emotional intelligence, how to create things that engage with people's emotions so that you can really generate momentum and resonance. And tell your friends about this. Is a brand new, you're an early adopter audience. Congratulations and thank you so much for joining us. Early days, it's only episode 2 of Coolnomics Live. We are off to a really good start. We're building a really great foundation for the next however many years that we'll go on this journey to take this idea around the world and teach people how to build things that are resonant and economically successful, whilst also longer term working towards building economies that work better for society. And now you can join us on Patreon. We've set that up this week because it's an easy way for you to stay up to date with what's happening. There are paid tiers that we'll talk about more in the future. We're not really worried about those too much at the moment, but you can just join free on Patreon, and that way you can be able to find it easily in one place, the live link for the next week, the previous episodes, and any important updates for the community. So join us there on Patreon. Links can be found in our Instagram bio for that, or you can look up Coolnomics on Patreon. And I really want to thank you so much for joining us this week. Welcome to Coolnomics Live, to the world of Coolnomics. I appreciate your commitment and participation. I really hope this has planted some new seeds for you this evening, for your week ahead, for how to build things that are resonant and lucrative, successful. We're going to talk more about, the money side of things in the future, how to make money from things. But I want to thank you so much this evening. Thank you so much for Fiona for your support as well. And we will catch you next week for episode 3. Okay. Good night, everyone.